We're live, just like that. How we doing, guys?
Fantastic. It's a nice little Sunday. Week zero's done. Week one's ramping up. Ready for it.
Heck yeah, heck yeah! I am so happy to finally say uh, college football is back.
Did anybody else kind of have a surreal moment on Saturday when you're watching college football and you're kind of like, oh, this is it. This isn't spring games. This isn't preseason NFL. Somebody's gonna be 0-1 and 1-0 after these. It was I think though I was watching the last game of the night, Hawaii Vanderbilt, and it hit me. I'm like, holy crap! This was just an appetizer. We have the main course coming over the next 12 to 13 weeks. It's going to be amazing.
Right? I can't wait. I cannot wait. Kyler, how are you? I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Yes.
Sometimes my fat finger presses the wrong button. No, I'm doing good. Just enjoying my one day off out of the week, and on this one day off, doing about 6 hours of podcasting. So it's been a busy day.
Yeah, I'm on
All
podcast
right.
4 of 5 today.
Yep.
I had to cancel
Yikes.
one. I almost did 6. Football is back, guys. Football is back.
Football
No days
is
off.
back. No. I got a show tonight, and I got a show tomorrow night, and a show every week after that. So
There you go.
it's gonna be a busy time, but it's fun time.
Mm-hmm.
All righty. So this is kind of weird. You're watching the NAU Sports Show, but we're actually doing this as the Big Sky Podcast Network because we're not just talking about NAU. We're talking about all Big Sky teams tonight. So with that, allow me to introduce these two gentlemen that I'm talking to. From the Eagle Power Hour, Kyler Neal, and from the former host of Tubbs in the Club and current host of Up North and the FCS Football Chris Show, Chris Hammond. Welcome.
Thank you.
All righty. So let's talk some Big Sky football with each team, how we think they're going to do, what their projected record is going to be, and kind of what their pros and cons are for the season and what to kind of look out for. Okay. So let's start out with Eastern Washington Eagles. Kyler, I think you're the one to talk about it. What do you think about your favorite team?
Oh, I think in terms of talent, they still have one of the more talented rosters in all the Big Sky, right? They definitely miss a few seniors that have been proven, like, of course, Eric Barrier. That seems to be the topic of discussion in this offseason, which, if you're not an Eastern fan, you may think the world's collapsing. If you're an Eastern fan, you also may think the world's collapsing. But at the end of the day, you just have to realize Eastern Washington has put more Walter Payton caliber FCS quarterbacks than anyone in the nation, and second place isn't very close. So if you trust in the system, if you trust in the coaches, you probably aren't going to see as big of a drop off as maybe you thought. We'll see. But overall, yeah, it's just another season. I don't think it's a reload. I don't think it's a rebuild. I think it's somewhere in between. But Eastern Washington has a talent. They have the pieces to probably shock a few teams next year. And I know no one really is looking forward to playing Eastern, right? No one's looking at Eastern going, that's a for sure win. No one's looking at them going, that's a for sure loss. You just don't know what to expect from them, but they're always one of the cream of the crop teams in the Big Sky, has been for 20 plus years. I don't anticipate it changing drastically, if that makes sense.
So I guess my question is, EB3 is gone.
Correct.
And now you have a backup quarterback who is going into number 1.
Yep.
Now, was it last year that you guys played a Division II school?
Yeah, we played multiple of them, but last year Jacksonville State canceled their game, and they were going to visit us last minute. They ended up wanting to play Florida State instead. So we had a last-minute replacement game, which ended up being a Division II team.
Now, that was at home, and EB3 was injured or wasn't playing or something. I think this was last year, and you guys almost lost. It was it was a close game that you guys almost lost.
No, you're thinking of when Lindenwood played in 2019, and it still wasn't a close game. We just had one really bad quarter. I mean, you still ended up winning by 3 touchdowns.
All right.
I mean,
Lindenwood is FCS now.
They're an FCS team now out of the Ohio Valley Conference. So, but no, last year it was a complete beatdown.
Right. Okay. So how do you think this not new, but this quarterback, what is his name?
Gunnar Talkington is our number 1 quarterback right now.
Okay. So how do you think Gunnar's going to do?
I think he's actually going to do fine. He doesn't have the skill set of an Eric Berrier, right? Not a lot of guys do.
Right.
But makes good decisions. He's known the playbook for 6 years now because he's a super senior. He's been Eric Berrier's backup for a long time. He's had playing time. I mean, he threw a touchdown pass against Idaho. He has playing time. But yeah, he's going to be one of those guys where we're not going to expect to see 5,000 yards out of him. We're not going to be throwing 80% of the time. He's going to be a very good game manager. Probably won't be able to win games on his own if we need him to, but he's also not a guy who's going to lose us games. It's going to be a very consistent, probably 3,000 passing yards, 30 touchdowns, maybe 25. But I think you're going to see a pretty big run-heavy offense, more like a 2010 Eastern Washington system.
Got it. Okay. So what do you think they're going to end the year at?
So there's really brutal schedule, really tough schedule. I could see this Eastern Washington team going anywhere from 4-7 to probably 7-4. I mean, that's probably the expectation. So they're either going to be a playoff spoiler or a playoff caliber team. We'll have to wait and see. I personally project them going 6-5 or 7-4 if Afonso is out injured when we play Montana State.
All right. So either way, they're not going to the playoffs.
No, if they're 7-4, they're easily getting in the playoffs.
Okay.
They're going to have a top 5 strength of schedule. So if they go 7-4, that's 2 FBS losses. They're going, 7-2 versus the FCS with multiple rank wins in that case. So that would be a lock. But if they go 6-5, they're probably out of the playoffs, right? So,
okay. All righty, Mr. Chris, University of Idaho.
Yeah, I could have thrown a touchdown against us last year if it goes the same. Gunnar Talkington as quarterback of Eastern. So,
sure. Your 5'2" body, yeah, I agree.
Hey, 5'5".
All righty, University of Idaho. Let's see here. They lost against NAU. They lost against SUU, I think, last year. They weren't really.
Yeah, we lost like everybody better than us, basically.
Okay.
If they were considered a bad team, we beat them. If they were a good team, we were a lot like NAU. We just, I think, played a little bit more at the top. We're like, we didn't beat Montana. We didn't beat Montana State. We didn't beat Eastern. We didn't beat NAU. We did beat Portland State, Southern Utah, Idaho State. And then obviously our D2 game against Fraser.
Got it. So, how do you think they're going to do this year? And what is the biggest changes?
So, biggest change, coach. Got a new coach, the former offensive coordinator for South Dakota State. He has had some time in the Big Sky. Jason Eck, he spent a season with Montana State. It's actually his second stint at Idaho. He came here and worked for Nick Holt when we were FBS back in 2004 through 2006. On our offensive line, in that time, he also was one of the few coaches retained when we hired Hall of Fame coach Dennis Erickson to come back. Not two-time national champion Dennis Erickson. So, that shows something when you get retained from a staff. So a guy that we've had promise, he's been to Moscow before. He's seen how arguably the best coach in Idaho history, and Dennis Erickson, wanted to run the program only for 1 year. But, the guy ran it in the 80s well. He's probably trying to do something similar. So there's a lot of hope behind him. I've told a lot of people this. He said all the right things. He's starting to recruit the Northwest, which is something I think we've been slacking on. We've still had the FBS recruiting model where we were recruiting kids out of Arkansas and Georgia and Florida, and that's all great. But like, there's so much talent out west. Like, I know, like NAU, like Arizona's a hotbed. Utah's an up and coming high school ground. We have California, we have Washington. Like, Oregon's another state that's coming up in the high school ranks with the population influx to both Nevada and Idaho. Like, both Vegas, Reno, and the Treasure Valley here in Idaho are becoming bigger recruiting hotbeds. So like, the West is starting to produce some talent. So hopefully X able to capture that. For Idaho, record-wise, I expect a little bit more of the same. Win-loss record-wise, maybe one more win. I don't think we'd have any less, like, more losses. In sense, like, I don't think we're going to go 3-9 per se, or 3-8. But I think 4-7, 5-6 is a realistic option. I just think what I've told people is you got to give him time. He was hired late into the process because, South Dakota State was making a deep run into the playoffs, and he didn't want to leave the team. So he didn't get a full recruiting cycle. He only had about 3 weeks to put together his class. So we don't have a lot of guys. I know for one thing, he likes our quarterbacks, but thinks maybe we could get better. Obviously brought in a transfer from South Dakota State for that. But I expect Idaho to look better, play more competitively, but I would expect first-year Eck, similar win-loss record.
Yeah. Being an Idaho fan, are you happy that your previous coach is gone?
I'm one of the weird ones who didn't hate Paul Petrino as much as everybody else. But yeah, after 9 years, you're in the business of like, you got to win. And I think he is a little bit out of his time and needs a refresh because he had grown stagnant and he did not adopt with the times. I make the joke. We went from having a head coach who didn't even have a Twitter to now our head coach's wife is famous on Twitter and runs a blog, right? Like, they're up in the times, our social media game from the coaches. They're out, they're recruiting, dropping videos, this, that, the other. They're in front of these recruits' faces all the time. Paul was the old school, like, I mean, nobody ever heard from him except his 10-minute weekly radio show. Like, that was the only interaction Vandal fans had, which is just not how you should run a program after about the year 2013. Right. And ironically, he got hired then and never really adapted. So yeah, I'm excited for some new blood. I think we needed it. I appreciate Paul giving us 2016, and even with that, 2015 and 2017 were still enjoyable seasons. So all in all, he gave me 3 good years of football. I don't hate the guy as much as everybody else. He didn't personally kick my dog or anything. So glad for the change. But yeah, I mean, I think Paul sometimes gets an unfair rap from some Vandal fans and how much they like despise him. Well, they won't let the whole starting his son at quarterback thing go. That's what it is. A lot of people really, really refuse to move on from that. But he's gone, so they better do it.
And did his son graduate?
Okay. Yeah, he is a grad assistant now for the Purdue University.
After that big NAU game.
Yeah.
I mean, that was his last game,
right? No, he came back a year after that.
Okay.
But,
all righty. Chris, let's talk about your other favorite team. That's Idaho State.
Oh, thought it was Eastern.
No, no, no. That's my other favorite team. Just kidding. So Idaho State had a horrific year last year. They only won 1 game, and that was a fluke against UC Davis.
Yeah.
And I'm not even.
Can you get more Big Sky than that?
And I'm not even a UC Davis fan, and I even think it's a fluke. So they also have a new coach this year too.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Who is he? Where is he from?
Charlie Ragle. He came from Cal as a special teams coordinator, but most of his chops, as it were, in Central, were cut in the high school games down in Arizona. So yeah. So he's a kind of an Arizona high school.
Was it
powerhouse?
Was it Chaparral or Segura?
There was a Chaparral.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember which one he went to.
Charlie.
I don't remember if it's Chaparral or
But yeah, he was one of the big. He coached at 2 different schools, but one obviously is a powerhouse. He coached at Chaparral. So Moon Valley is a DC, Chaparral is a GC or DC. then took a job at Arizona State before coming back as the head coach for Chaparral from 07 to 11 before going back to Arizona and then Cal and then Idaho State. But he's 63-7 all time as a high school coach. So
interesting.
So I think he'll connect better with younger players, right? Like,
definitely will connect better with younger players. But Chris and I on the Up North podcast, we're doing, a series per team. And, when we looked at Idaho State's roster at first, I think we were a little more optimistic. And then
we did we took the media poll and worked backwards. So like they got picked 12th. So we started with them. And when you don't have anybody else to compare them to, we really talked ourselves into Idaho State being like, maybe being able to surprise some people this year.
Yeah, still like 2 wins.
Yeah, as we are 9 schools in now,
they don't have the roster.
They will be last place. Maybe Cal Poly, but probably Idaho State.
Idaho State's probably the worst team by far.
But once again, I mean, he didn't get a full recruiting class. I mean, he got hired only a week before Idaho made their hire, and we fired our coaches on the same day. So it's like. They waited a long time for somebody they really didn't need to. But like I've said, I like their AD a lot, Pauline Theros. There's some phonetical issues she could do better to be more inclusive to her fan base for sure. But otherwise, I think her vision is great. I'm saying that as in, I think she turns off her own fans, where I think some people looking from the outside are like, I mean, she has that athletic department rolling in a way it hasn't rolled in since the 80s. So I think this is a good hire. For them, I think they probably could have done better. I don't think it's the best hire, but you know what? I think they'll be better than they were with Rob Hennessy. So I think give him 2, 3 years, 4 years. He's got a 5-year deal, but I think it'll be good. Even in week 0 game against UNLV, they looked good for the first quarter. Then everything fell apart. But there was a great quote I took away from that where they're like, we were talking to Regal, and they go, they're blah, blah, asking him something, and he gets it. He was like, no, I'm playing the win. We're going to go for it on 4th down, everything. He goes, it's my first game coaching in a 5-year contract. He goes, all the pressure is on UNLV not to win this game. We got nothing to lose. I was like, that's a great attitude. Like, he's right. He's like, why not? It's my first game. Show out, get these players excited, get these fans excited. And I think if they turned the game off after the first quarter, they would have left excited because other than one bad pick, Idaho State could have been leading the end of the first quarter 14-10. So things changed, though. So
yeah, definitely.
Could have been better, could have been worse. But, yeah, expect Idaho State to be somewhere between 10 to 12 in the final conference standings.
1 to 2 wins.
1 to 2 wins. All right. Now, the other bottom tier team, that's Northern Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, they, I think, won 4 games, 5 games.
3.
Like that. 3.
Yeah, they beat NAU in overtime. They beat Houston Baptist in Idaho State?
Oh, and they barely lost to Lamar.
Yeah, but they lost to Lamar.
Yeah.
Okay. They have, it's not a new coach, but I think it's his second full season.
Yep.
Yes.
I don't know. I know that NAU is going to their house again for the second year in a row. And it's kind of NAU's kryptonite is Green Lake for whatever reason that is. But they also can't win in Flagstaff. So I don't think they're going to be much improvement this year. I don't really see many changes happening other than they got a new field.
Yeah, they had a very weird off season. So they lost about 20, 30 kids because, Ed McCaffrey's changing things. Now, there's arguments that says when you lose 20, 30 kids, it's because something is negative in the program. Or there's another argument that can be made. You lost 20 to 30 kids that weren't good enough, right? New coach bringing in some talent. The transfer portal's working. And Ernest Collins, he had an average of 2 wins a year for 9 years at Northern Colorado. So maybe losing 20 to 30 of those kids isn't that bad of an idea. But when we were checking out the roster, they have some talent on the team, just not sold. They have the coaching experience to really put that talent together. But it was one of the teams on the bottom of the Big Sky where when we're looking at the roster, we go, this is not that bad of a roster. Why are they so bad? So it has to be more the schemes. Maybe he's going to improve that second year. We're going to have to wait and see. But I think we still pick Northern Colorado for about 3 wins on the year, something similar to that.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
But probably more competitive games than last year.
I actually think out of teams in the bottom, and I don't want to blow Cal Poly's preview before we get there, but like of the bottom 3 teams, I think they have the best chance to surprise people.
Right.
Really good roster.
That said, they could easily not. I'm just saying, like, out of Cal Poly, Idaho State, and Northern Colorado, if you ask me who has the best shot of finishing between 7 and 9, I'd be like, probably Northern Colorado.
Yep.
Right.
Their transfers in were actually like productive in. Like they lost them out, but a lot we said one linebacker was like one of the only guys we recognized, but they got some serious transfers in.
Elijah Dotson.
They brought in Elijah Dotson from Sac State, who's arguably the best running back in the conference. I know we have a lot of them right now, but like somebody out there would probably say he's the best. So like he's definitely top 5. So you got that coming in, and then as we touched on, they now have, for whatever it's worth, it's an accolade, right? It doesn't mean crap until it's on the field. They have 2 Elite 11 quarterbacks with the transfer of Jacob Sermon coming in from Central Michigan. So they're, as far as I know of, they're one of the few teams in the FCS that have had an Elite 11 quarterback in the last decade, and they're about to have 2 of them. So it doesn't matter if they can't play football, but in terms of saying like the kind of caliber of athlete that McCaffrey's been able to bring into the program,
solid,
at least on paper, he is attracting a higher echelon of player than he used to get, or at Ernest Collins used to get. Like that's more of what I'm taking away from it. Whether Sermon or McCaffrey are good quarterbacks, we'll let stats go and play it out. But either way, his recruiting is starting to get more of those guys, and some of them will hit. Where Idaho State and Cal Poly haven't really found anybody that they brought in that woos me. Where Northern Colorado, like, okay, like you got Elijah Dotson, you got Jacob Sermon. They got another wide receiver from a Power 5 school, if I remember right. Like it's a program that's definitely bringing in some pieces. That said, I still expect them to probably finish 3rd or 4th to last, but they're building. It's just Northern Colorado fans had some of the most unrealistic expectations of that turnaround of any fan base ever. Like even Montana fans expected Bobby Hauck to take a few pieces. Northern Colorado expect to be where like Montana is now, but like with a way people forget Bobby Hauck still inherited like a 6-7 win team, and they still were thinking like 3-4 years will be a contender. Northern Colorado thought they were going to like win the Big Sky or finish like at least top 3 year 1 after a complete teardown, not even a rebuild. They'd, as you saw with the transfers out, tear down that program and rebuild it. And I still think, they've got the foundation laid. They still don't even have the studs up for the first floor. Like they're 3 seasons away from really seeing if McCaffrey is a working solution or not.
Wasn't Ben one of the ones that was really saying that, UNC is going to go really far?
Aaron Rath was the major player.
Yeah, Aaron.
Punter's dad on Twitter.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them.
But, hey, I think all of us can at least agree. None of us hate Northern Colorado, and we'd all be happy to see them improve because it only strengthens the conference, right?
Right, definitely.
Yeah, and Kyle and I talked about it in our episode. It's like, they are one of those teams that's maybe unfairly so if like the Big Sky does do a reduction and gets down to like 10 teams like it should be. Northern Colorado is one of the easy schools that people are out there all the time. We're like, if you actually look at Northern Colorado as an overall athletic department, it's actually a pretty dang good one. We were talking about like look at what their volleyball teams play, both their men's and women's basketball teams play, their soccer team. Like as an athletic department, they're one of the more overall competitive.
Yeah,
it's just their football program. But at the D2 level, they were good, and at our level, they have 2 of the most successful NFL guys currently, or I guess historically, right? So it's like at the athletic department, they're almost one you wish that they could step it up in football, so that they would get out of that conversation because they maybe rightfully don't deserve to be there as frequently as they are, but they're not doing themselves any favors.
I hear you. All righty. Northern Arizona. Let's talk about it.
Let's do it.
This is Chris Ball's fourth season there. I think he has a 5-year contract. But he's only been able to do so far get a 5-win season the most. Okay, he hasn't been able to go higher than that. But he keeps building. He keeps getting better players. He keeps getting better recruiting classes. Our quarterback, who will most likely be starting the season off, his name was RJ Martinez. He's from Texas. He had a phenomenal year last season. He was the Big Sky Freshman of the Year. He was on the watch list for the quarterback, the FCS quarterback award. I forgot what it's called.
Watch list for the Walter Payton.
That's it. Now the worst thing that NAU has been having constantly for the last few years is defense. Their offense has been pretty good, but it's true, you win games by defense. The good thing is we're returning like 24 starters on defense this year, plus more faces. So it's going to be, they're already saying that it's going to be a better, tougher, bigger defense than last year. So that's I'm looking forward to it. I am. Our schedule isn't horrible. I think we have one of the easier schedules of the Big Sky. We don't face Montana. We don't face Eastern Washington. Montana State's at home. Weber State's at home. We go to UC Davis, so that might be a tough game. But we face a lot of the easier teams like Idaho at home. No, I'm sorry. We go to Idaho this year.
No, we're down in Flagstaff. Remember, you were going to give me tickets to that game.
You're right. Never mind.
You host Idaho State.
Yeah, you're right. And I'm going to that game anyway. So why am I saying that Idaho is we're at Idaho? Jeez. Yeah. By the way, I'll be in Flagstaff for September 24th versus Idaho.
Nice.
I say either a six win, maybe a 7 win. Especially with how they're saying that this year could be, and the schedule. That's how I think we're going to go. Thoughts?
Yeah. NAU is that one team. They have all the right pieces in place on the offense. RJ Martinez, you mentioned him, stud freshman. He looks like he's going to be, given the reins. The wide receiver room is still very talented. Daniels, the running back, extremely talented. But the defensive side of the ball, especially in defending the pass, was almost non-existent. So when I'm looking at Northern Arizona and what's their projection for this coming year, they're at a conference isn't the easiest. They play Sam Houston State. It's going to be a tough one. They play Arizona State. Going to be a tough one. And then they play North Dakota, who's kind of a middle-of-the-road Missouri Valley team. So, in terms of an out-of-conference schedule, it's a pretty daunting out-of-conference schedule for NAU. But at least, like you said, the regular season schedule kind of eases itself. But if I was projecting an NAU schedule, I see 5 to 6 wins, probably not more than that, unless they have a radical change on the defensive side of the ball. Which, we're waiting to see if they can put their pieces together on the defensive side, especially because maybe the Big Sky overall looks like it's going to be down offensively this year, or at least a very run heavy system in the Big Sky. If any of you can figure out their defense, yeah, maybe they can rattle off a couple more wins than what we thought. Because Flagstaff's not a easy place to play. We've been pretty lucky there, but NAU and Flagstaff that high in elevation, it's not an easy place to play, especially when they're scoring, they're ripping their chainsaws. right? It's a cool little environment. So yeah, I'm rooting for NAU a little bit. Moving from Arizona to Texas, I kind of like NAU. But I see 5 to 6 wins unless they're massively improved on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, we made the joke on our Up North episode previewing NAU. You guys have probably the deepest, if not one of the top 2, top 3 deepest wide receiver rooms in the country or in the Big Sky. And we're like, man, if they want to get good, maybe they need to start converting some of these wide receivers to DBs because you guys are loaded at wide receiver, but your defensive backfield is paper thin. I mean, it arguably is. If you're top 3 in wide receivers, you're probably closer to bottom 3 in defensive backs. And we're just like, man, like you've got like 20 wide receivers on the roster. Throw 5 of them back there. They can't do any worse. It's kind of our joke, but yeah. And we were just talking about, we also covered like the floor and ceiling of what we think your program could be. We were just talking about like as a sleeping giant type in the sense of like 30,000 kids, well-funded. Kyler touched on it. Like when you live in the state of Arizona, it's not like living in some of these other states, right? Where it's like, oh, the FCS teams are like, nobody knows who they are. In Arizona, everybody knows Arizona, Arizona State, and NAU because there isn't like a G5 team. That is almost like their G5 team. So, and when it's 30,000 kids, like it's a freaking lot of alumni, and they're all usually from Southern Utah or Arizona or maybe
Phoenix,
Southern Nevada. They're all from that area. So like they stick around and they make it back. And, it's not a school where, you go to school in San Luis Obispo and then you move back to wherever the heck you're from, right? Or any of these Ivy League schools. So we were talking about it. It's a program that could rise. So hopefully Ball's the guy that could do it. But yeah, I'm more with Kyler. I just checked my roster. I had him at 5 and 6. So I think they're going to be pretty dang similar to last year. But yeah, losing Brandon Porter hurts. But I'm still a big believer in Hendricks Johnson. You guys got Daniels. The running back room seems figured out. You got 2 guys back there. And then we're just talking like, is RJ Martinez going to be Kate Cookus? No. But at this point, you have a little bit more balance in the running back or like the backfield. So you don't need a Case Cookus anymore.
Right. And he can do just about everything. He really can.
He's a talented kid.
Yep. He is. And then we also have Angel Flores from Casa Grande that Coach Ball says is looking really good.
But you can't be a NAU legendary quarterback until you get a targeting penalty. That's just –
You're right.
So mission for RJ Martinez, if you were listening or watching, I'm going to need a targeting penalty, preferably not against Idaho. Please and thank you.
And you need to be an 8th or 9th year senior to be an NAU quarterback.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you've got to be a doctorate when you get this because you then have to go fix the head trauma you caused the guy for targeting on it.
So, exactly.
Yeah.
That's funny. All righty. The Weber State. They have they've been pretty good the last few years. And I don't know, man. They keep adding players. It seems like I think they had a pretty decent recruiting class. Their head coach has been there forever now. He doesn't want to leave, and no one wants him to leave. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah. I'm probably higher on Weber State than most people. And the main reasons why, not just looking at like historic value, but 2019, very similar defense. They were a semifinal team, and everyone likes to, make fun of Weber State's offense. Statistically speaking, their offense last year was so much better than the 2019 team. Their offense in 2019 was one of the worst in all of the country. This last year, they were right in the middle of the road, right? They were around that 50.
An extremely difficult schedule.
With a really brutal schedule, playing James Madison, multiple other teams, a lot of the top tier teams in the Big Sky. And then they were riddled with injuries. Josh Davis was not healthy. That's their Jerry Rice winning running back who's kind of lit up the Big Sky. He wasn't healthy for most of the season. Barron, their freshman quarterback, went down with an injury. They were on like their 3rd string quarterback for halfway through the season. And then when they got healthy, they went toe-to-toe with Montana State, a very close 3-point game. They beat Eastern Washington in a very close game. They had a slip-up against Portland State, but other than that, when they were healthy, they won every other game or at least were really close in a contested battle. So I think they do have another brutal schedule, right? They have a brutal conference schedule just like Eastern. But I think if they can stay healthy, we're looking at more of a 2019 Weber team than maybe a last year. And I think they are one of the few teams, if they can get it together offensively, they can easily make a deep run into the playoffs. So I'm a little higher on Weber than most people. I actually had them ranked number 14 in the nation coming into this season, and it's just hoping they can stay healthy. If they can't stay healthy, they're going to have a very similar outcome of last year. But if they can stay healthy, man, they are not a team I would feel comfortable playing.
Yeah, I put Weber State on my back the last 2 seasons. The guy who's saying this is going to be the year they're going to break through. This is the year they're not going to be that bad. I am taking a break from the Weber wagon this year. I have found a new team to hitch my curse to, which I'm sure we'll get to them here soon. But, I think Weber could be good. We just did our win-loss predictions on them today. I don't really like where I got them sitting. I think I had them at like 6-5. I think they're going to be better than 6-5. But yeah, I agree with Kyler. They get this misconception now. They do have a new offensive coordinator too. So like the offense is going to change. They still are they're 3 deep at the running back position. They do have a stable quarterback. They have a couple guys coming in via doing missions and stuff in the coming seasons. I don't think they're leaving their perch anytime soon. And a little theory I played around with the Weber State one is like, I was talking about is like, I think we've seen an over adjustment from the conference. They really did well. They won those championships when the league was mostly an offensive league. Now you've had Montana State become defensive under Jeff Choate. You've had Montana really strengthen their defense under Bobby Hauck. You've had Idaho come in whose strength has been their defense. And I think that's where you've seen them show a little bit more of their chinks in their armor of like, okay, like more teams are becoming defensive and less of these offensive powerhouses. As Kyler touched on, Weber's done maybe the best job in the Big Sky over the last 5-6 seasons of stopping Eastern. I think you're starting to see more teams shift to that defensive strategy, which has also swung the other way where you have guys like Sac State and Cal Poly and these other teams switching to try to go back offensive. So I think there's going to be another opportunity for Weber here soon as a lot of these teams go back from being defensive strongholds to offensive strongholds. So I think Weber 2-3 seasons probably wins the conference again. I don't think it's this year, and I don't think it's next year.
So Colby Peterson from Weber State Weekly, who is one of the Big Sky Podcast Network shows, and I have talked with both NAU officials and Weber State officials, and we are trying our hardest to, since Southern Utah is gone, they left, they've gone to the WAC. Okay, so NAU no longer has a rivalry. I know Ben, which is the University of Northern Colorado fan, he really wants a rivalry with NAU to start. There's not enough history, I don't believe, between UNCO and NAU. However, there's 50 plus years with NAU and Weber State. In fact, it is tied, I think, 27-27. So Colby Peterson and I have been trying to make a rivalry, and both schools like the idea of it. It's rather if they're going to actually make something of it. But we've decided to call it Melee in the Mountains. What do you guys think?
Man. Well, speaking of Kyler and I and the Twitterverse of both Vandal and Eastern can't come up with a rivalry name for our little rivalry. We have like 3 or 4 that circulate around. I would say that's a pretty dang good one. And just the plug, I hate how we keep plugging or up north, but since we're literally covering every team, a lot of this is repeat for us. But it's like we talked about this on our episode with covering Weber, Alex Boatman and I, where we were talking about how Weber no longer really has that rival with Southern Utah leaving. And we talked about that, like, who's their rival? Like, Idaho State makes the most sense because
so
they're
close.
like, they're only like an hour and a half away from each other. And they are both charter members of the Big Sky. They've been there since 1964 when it was founded. So they have lots and lots of history. They are both, we call them public LDS schools.
Yeah.
And then, but we touched on, right, but then there's the other one. NAU is basically, if you guys were not a charter member, but you were as dang close to a charter member as you could be. You guys came in 6 years into the conference existing.
1970.
which is like 18 years before even like Eastern Washington came in. To put it like in perspective, is like they've been here a long, long time, and we're like, so these are schools that have history together. In recent years, you guys have like you said a term that I hate called like when you said like making a rivalry. Rivalries have to like happen, right? Like, but I think you guys have the recent results in your history to have that happen.
Right.
You have had the Hail Mary just 2 seasons ago, and you guys have had this weird thing where like even when Weber's been really good, you guys have been able to get them or give them a game even when you guys weren't at your best, and vice versa. And that's where I'm like, that's how rivalry is. It's like Weber is at top of the mountain, has a chance to win the conference outright, be the first team to do it in like 6 seasons, and then NAU beats them, right? And it's like they get a share, so they still win, the overall battle. But in that, or the overall war, but in that battle, they lost because they had an opportunity that NAU spoiled, and those things boil over, and fan bases and fans hold them for years and years and years. Remember 2019 where we could have won the whole thing and then we lost it. It's like that's where I think you have something. And what we touched about Northern Colorado as an option for Weber too, being like Denver and Salt Lake are kind of alternates.
Right.
But we're like, but they're like 7-8 hours away. So it's like,
Yeah.
I think the best choice we're saying like is NAU, Weber, and then Weber, Idaho State for Weber State. And then for you guys, it's probably Northern Colorado and Weber is probably your best 2 rivals.
Well, because they switched up the protected rivals. Is Weber one of your guys' every single year they're playing still?
Yes.
Cool. So it's Northern Colorado and Weber, I assume?
Yes.
Yeah, can you believe it? They sacrificed
perfect.
The legendary Montana State Northern Colorado rivalry to give it to NAU. Can you believe that?
I think it's a good fit for, NAU Northern Colorado, NAU Weber. I think for like a protected rivalry series, you guys got one of the better series, right? Like Montana had to drop Eastern, and now they're getting Portland State. Who cares?
That is the most.
I like how we have Idaho and at least Montana State instead of Portland State. I'll take that. But I think like Northern Colorado makes a lot of sense for you guys because you guys are both kind of out in the boonies by yourselves. And then Weber, I think it's a great addition. Utah, Arizona, there's already a rivalry with the 2 states in general, it seems like. I think it's solid.
It's going to be our quasi big game on the Up North podcast because we are up north and you guys are both the northern directional schools. So it is quasi our mascot game. So we're big on the Northern Colorado NAU game.
Okay. Big. But Kyler,
yeah,
since you guys aren't playing Portland State every year, what about the damn cup?
Who cares? I mean, they'll probably keep the name. We'll still play them in all the other sports every single year, right? And then we're probably going to play them in the out of conference every now and then too. So whenever we play, it's still going to probably go for the damn cup trophy. It is the best trophy name in college sports. But yeah, I mean, I don't think either fan base cares.
What we really need is to thin the Big Sky to 9 and then have Seattle U come over from the WAC as a basketball only or a Olympic sport only school. And then Portland State has an actual natural rival with Seattle U. But
I want Grand Canyon to come to the Big Sky and play us in basketball.
That would be great too.
Canyon would be an amazing addition for Olympic sports.
Yes.
Yeah. I'd take Grand Canyon and Seattle U.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, move the conference title game to Seattle. I'm in. Anyways, back to football.
All right. Next up, we were just kind of talking about them. Portland State. They suck.
Yeah, they're kind of like your Idaho NAU in terms of there's definitely teams below you guys, right?
Right.
And then there's definitely teams above you guys. There's a middle echelon where it seems to be any given year, Northern Arizona or Portland State. All the teams above are going to playoffs. All the teams below kind of stink. So it seems like Portland State and NAU are kind of on that same track record. Just NAU seems, in my opinion, to have a much better roster than Portland State, even though everyone prides Portland State on recruiting, right? They do have a lot of talent, but I like NAU's roster over Portland State. But yeah, they seem to be in kind of that middle tier of the Big Sky.
Didn't they also get a new coach?
No,
or is it still the same?
Bruce Barnum's still been there for a
while. Idaho State, and Southern Utah were the 3 schools to remove their coaches.
Okay. Got it. So I don't know, what, 4 wins? If that, 3 wins?
Let me look at their schedule. I forgot what I had. What did you have when you pulled it
I
up?
had them at 4-7. Kyler, you had them at 2-9. You had them beating Lincoln and Northern Colorado.
They'll
I had
definitely
them-
have more than 2 wins, but
I had them beating Cal Poly, Northern Colorado, Lincoln, and I had them beating San Jose State.
Wow.
I'm gonna
Well,
have to
that
rewatch
is-
that episode. What?
I mean, yeah, the one they have a pretty tough schedule.
They do, and no Davis Alexander, but they do have Michael Irwin Sr. at quarterback.
Yeah, they'll
Oh,
probably have,
Casey, you haven't watched our episode, so if I told you asked you how many quarterbacks do you think Portland State has right now on their roster?
5.
you
What
would
if I
be
told you
very
they're
wrong.
9.5?
9.
The half is they have a guy listed as an athlete who can play all over the field, but he played quarterback in high school, but they
Oh.
haven't listed him as a quarterback on their roster.
Okay.
They have 9 listed quarterbacks and an athlete who played quarterback in high school.
Why so
Yeah.
many do you expect that many injuries on
I don't know.
quarterback?
It's like you guys and wide receivers. Like,
Yeah, true.
but
Yeah, I
9
think-
quarterbacks is excessive. But we're big fans of Michael Irwin Sr. I don't remember if it's Michael, but it's definitely Irwin Sr. He's gonna be
Yeah.
rocking the number 0, which is a odd thing for a quarterback to wear. But
I think Portland State will have anywhere between 2 and 5 wins.
Okay.
yeah, they're definitely a
Interesting.
wild card because we'll see how much of it really was Davis Alexander, right? Like,
Mhm.
is it Bruce Barnum has a pretty good system that is a little bit more plug and play, or did Davis carry them, get them some wins? Because he was that kind of quarterback that he could actually win you a game per se.
Yeah, he was a tough kid.
Instead of being one of those quarterbacks that wouldn't lose you a game, he was a guy who could win you a game. It seemed. We'll see this
Right.
year. So
Right. Speaking of number 0, Kyler, you live in Texas. I used to live in Texas. I went to the UTSA games quite a bit.
Okay.
Their area code is 210.
Mhm.
Okay. So they have players on the team that have 2-1-0. And most of the times, the QB, at least when I was there, wore either 1 or wore 0.
Okay.
So just useless knowledge.
Perfect.
So I don't see them going much higher than probably 3 wins for Portland State. They're just a bottom tier team. I don't even see any upsets, and there's no way they're beating San Jose State. I think you might have been drunk or something when you were making that prediction.
Definitely a little bit. But out of current like Big Sky versus FBS teams, Portland State has a history of upsetting FBS
I
almost
think
like
that's
every
what
other
it
year.
was. We talked about it. They beat
Well,
2 in
And
one
San
season.
Jose State is so bad.
Yeah, because they beat
Yeah.
Wazoo, and then one year they beat
Texas State, they beat
Yeah,
Port,
no,
they
North
beat
Texas.
Oregon State.
North
Yeah.
Texas coach
North
fired 'cause
Texas.
they won like 70-0 against
Yeah,
an
it's like
FBS
66-7. But then they beat, Oregon State, Washington State. I mean,
They-
they've had
beat
their fair
somebody
share
last
of,
year or 2 years ago.
Yep.
I think that's why I did it. Is they have a history of doing it, and
and then
I
tanking.
think San Jose State's going to be kind of bad this year.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think like 4 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, they almost beat Arkansas.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that
So
was
that's like what I'm saying. They
2019.
kind of have a history of showing up for those games.
Yeah,
Yeah,
So,
they do. They do.
I like the odds.
All right.
that said, I would change that pick if you give me the option at this moment, but that's already on the interwaves, so I can't go back now.
Got it. And we'll talk about FCS versus FBS here at the end, just to kind of get your thoughts of who's going to win. All right, Sacramento State. The past few years they've gotten pretty good, and are they the ones that got the old Eastern Washington coach, or is that Cal Poly?
Cal Poly has Bo Baldwin, but Troy Taylor's also an Eastern Washington coach. He was our quarterbacks coach and OC, and then he moved over to Sac State. So, yeah, everyone has an Eastern coach.
After 1 year in Utah, right?
Yeah, he went to Utah. Was it Utah or Utah State? One of those. And then he went to Sac State just the year after.
Okay. All right. I don't know. I mean, last year they were pretty good. They decimated NAU like 44-0.
Mm-hmm.
I give them pretty high praises this year. I think they're going to at least win probably 7 games. I don't know who's on their roster, but I don't know. What do you guys think?
They have definitely a solid roster. Troy Taylor's a great, brilliant offensive mind. They've been really good under Troy Taylor, right? He is a good coach. My only knock on them is last year they avoided 3 of the top 5 Big Sky teams to win their outright title, and I don't think they were better than some of the teams. They beat Montana when Montana was very injured after the Eastern game. Then they didn't play any other top tier teams outside of UC Davis, who lost to all the good teams also. So I don't think they were beating Montana State last year. I don't think they were beating Eastern Washington. And we've seen them fizzle out in the playoffs. They get a bye as a seed, and then they can't get past their first game. Now, last year they were playing South Dakota State, so I get that. But a lot of teams aren't beating South Dakota State. But then they got absolutely crushed and dominated by Austin Peay the last time they were in the playoffs, where Montana State made Austin Peay look like a joke of a program the next week. So it's one of those things. Sac State, I don't know if you're just benefiting from a weaker schedule, and that's why you're getting kind of all this praise, or are you really good? I think they're a playoff caliber team for sure. They have enough talent to, have 7 wins. I really do believe that. But do they have enough talent to have more than that? Are they going to beat the top tier teams in the Big Sky this year? I'm not sure. I would say they're a playoff team, but they're probably not going to be seeded this year.
Okay. Chris?
Oh, boy. I'm notoriously on the Sting is down train. It's kind of the running joke on the internet. I haven't been a believer in Sac State in 3 seasons. It proved me wrong 2 of those seasons. So whatever I say is probably going to be wrong on Sac State. I don't have a gauge on them. I think their roster isn't very good. I think they lost Elijah Dotson, who, as I said, is probably a top, in my opinion, the second best running back in the Big Sky at the moment. We'll see. He went to a less 7th team. I don't think so. But it just goes to show, why would a guy like that leave a program that's winning conference titles unless it's a house of cards? And, I don't know anything for certain or anything like that. I got the pleasure of actually going to see the campus in the stadium this spring. I don't know. I'm just not a believer in it. I think Troy Taylor's a good coach. It's nothing against Troy Taylor. I just look at their roster, and there is rarely anybody that wows me away. They had the really good receiver, Pierre Williams. Like I said, they had Elijah Dotson. Otherwise, I just don't see how they win. But it is a lot of it. Usually they do benefit. That's not true. The first year in 2019,
they played everyone.
They went through the gauntlet, and they did win got a share of the conference. But, yeah, as Kyler said, 2021, I do think they would have been down. They just played one good team, and it was a week after that good team played a huge rival on ESPN. It was a big game. It was a night game. And I think they were coming off of a bye, too. So, I don't know. But what I will shout out pros for Sac State, they have the best digital media company or team in the Big Sky. Those guys on their squad, if anybody doesn't follow them on Twitter or Instagram, the hype videos and stuff they put out for a program that is Sac State beats everybody in the conference. It's wild. And I don't know, they might have got swept away last season because they were that you'd watch their stuff and be like, holy crap. My favorite part of pregame ritual every week is seeing what the Sac State digital media people are posting. So they did really good video production and everything like that. But I'd be shocked if they're still there. Cal or somebody had to pay them because they were way too good to be at Sac State.
Right. All right. The other one of the only football schools, UC Davis. They were really good last year, except for the Idaho State game. I don't know what happened to them. I guess they just didn't show up. But I don't know. I think they're gonna. Normally, most years they're kind of the middle of the pack, upper tier for Big Sky. I think they're kind of be the same way. They haven't made the playoffs in a while, though, haven't they?
Last year, 2018 as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think they're gonna make the playoffs potentially again this year?
They always have a shot with Dan Hawkins being the coach. I think in terms of coaches around the Big Sky, Dan Hawkins is one of the best coaches, not just in the Big Sky, but in the FCS. I think they're one of the rare teams where the coach is way better than the individual talent on the team. And that's what UC Davis is getting when they play the top tier teams from the conference, like Eastern, pretty much mollywaps them most of the time. I mean, we're 10-0 against them. Typically, not a lot of are that competitive of games. Sac State mollywopped them, and then they didn't really play any other good teams. So it's one of those things like last year, they lost to all the good teams they played. They beat all the bad besides Idaho State. So they're kind of in that tier. Are they going to be improved? If not, I'm not sure. Ever since Jake Mayer left, Jake Mayermeyer, as the Montana Mint guys say, have kind of really taken a step down throwing the ball, especially without Keelan Doss, who was an amazing wide receiver who played for the Raiders for a little bit. I don't know if he's still on the NFL, but yeah, I just don't see the pieces in place to put them in that upper echelon of the Big Sky, but they're right in the middle of the pack. I think they're ranked number 25 or 24 right now. I think it's a fair ranking. They're good enough to beat some of the teams below. They're probably not going to beat any of the Big Sky teams ranked ahead. But yeah, they're on that teetering. Are they going to be a playoff or a playoff spoiler? I'm not sure.
Chris, you think they're going to be ranked 7th?
No. UC Davis, I mentioned this. I took the Weber backpack off this year and put on the UC Davis backpack. UC Davis is my team. I expect to kind of take a step forward this year. They're not winning the conference, but I could see them finishing 3rd in the conference. I actually think they're better than Sac State. I think UC Davis is probably the 3rd ranked team. I know Kyler disagrees with it. I had them at 8-3.
God, they got mollywopped, and each team didn't really lose that many pieces. If you're just
Elijah Dotson,
he didn't play last year.
He played.
That's why he left Sac State.
Games.
He didn't.
Right, but he wasn't playing on that game. That's. I mean,
there's such a
whole new
difference.
year. It's literally
such a talent difference.
It's such a whole new year. Like, I just think I agree with you. Like, God, it sucks because Troy Taylor's not a bad coach. But Dan Hawkins is a better coach. I think I think UC Davis's program has a lot more going for it. They just completed or about to open a new $50 million athletic facility and new practice field, a new weight room, and new locker rooms. Like, they're taking huge leaps forward. Their recruiting classes consistently they took a dip in 2020, but they consistently, otherwise everything took a dip in 2020, right? Like, they consistently are having more and more talent want to go there. They're starting, we brought it up. They got a Cal transfer to come in at linebacker who had 5 starts in the Pac-12. So it's not like he's just some dude who didn't play. He had 5 starts. They got a really promising freshman that transferred from San Jose State. And then they had another transfer that's skipping my mind right now that had like 20-something games under his belt at a G5 level. So it's like, I just think it's a program that has promise. And I think that this year is a year that they capitalize on. I think last year Weber State, I mean, they weren't as banged up as Weber State, but they just underperformed to their talent level. As Kyler touched on, under Dan Hawkins, they've been a consistent playoff team, and they barely got in last year, having a very bad year by their standards. So that's where I think this year, I think they could finish 3rd.
Cool. Cal Poly. They're going to be, I think they're going to be as bad as they were last year.
I think they'll definitely be improved over last year. Bo Baldwin has had the task of trying to change a power triple option team to an Eastern Washington air rated out. And if you know anything about Bo Baldwin, he's one of the greatest coaches in Big Sky history in terms of his winning percentage, what he was able to do, getting kids to the NFL, recruiting, deep runs in the playoffs. I think Cal Poly still has a lot of work to do. Looking at their roster, I don't think he has the pieces in place, but we should definitely every single year see an uptick in more competitive games. I mean, he went toe-to-toe with Sac State. They went toe-to-toe with a decent amount of teams and then got shellacked by a few. So looking at it, they're still going to be at the very bottom of the conference for a few more years, I think. But I think we're going to see a little more competitive games. And this is a team that can probably upset some of the mid-tier teams. Not beat all of them, right? Because I don't think they're a mid-tier team yet, because it's going to take still quite a bit more work from Bo Baldwin. But if I was a Portland State or a UC Davis or an NAU or even an Eastern this year, I probably wouldn't sleep too much on them. You could probably still win, right? You got better rosters, but Bo Baldwin is a fantastic mind. He's trying to bring the pieces in place. He had a few transfers come in there that could improve. But yeah, you're probably still looking at a 2, 3, maybe 4-win program max this year, but should hopefully be more competitive in some of these key games.
We touched on it with Eastern. They're a program that reloads at quarterback. That stems back to Bo Baldwin's coaching days. He was kind of that linchpin in them being able to quarterback after quarterback after quarterback. He hasn't had that guy at Cal Poly. They've gone through Hunter McKay. They've gone through Jalen Hamler. They haven't found a guy while he's there that can play. They're going to have their third starter in 3 years, most likely to start this season. If this guy is the guy, they will be good in 4 years for sure, because they will be able to start recruiting around him and he'll be able to show his promise. But from seeing who is on their roster, I don't think they have that guy. So I think they're in for another not even middling. They're in for another bad year. But like we said, Cal Poly or Bo Baldwin will be given the time, unless that administration is just the most boneheaded people ever and didn't realize that hiring a guy who's going to run a spread type system is going to take more than 2 seasons to convert a triple, not even a modern triple option, the wing T triple option team into a spread team. Like, this isn't you're taking a pro style and turning it into air raid, right? We have 5 fullbacks, 7 tight ends, and 7 running backs. And now we need no fullbacks, 3 tight ends, and 20 wide receivers. So it's going to take him time to recruit guys, develop those guys, and those guys get the valuable reps they need to be competitive. Mm-hmm. And this is just one of those years. They're going to get valuable reps, but they're not going to be a contender, but they could be a spoiler to some teams that sleep on them for sure.
But P.S., Chris, we had better quarterbacks even before Baldwin. The quarterback carousel was way before Baldwin.
No, I know. I'm saying, but he's okay. Yeah, I get what I'm saying.
Eric Myers, Matt Nichols, all these guys were before.
But you guys had some down periods between. This is like where you've gone the guy to the guy to the guy to the guy. Because isn't Meyer like 98?
He is early 2000s, then right after is Matt Nichols, and then right after is
Jesus. Well, that's why I've said all along Cal Poly should have hired Paul Wolf. But
there you go.
The actual linchpin to the Eastern Washington program.
So you don't think, or do you not think that Bo Baldwin could bring a national championship like he did at Eastern Washington in, say, 4 or 5 years?
No. I'm gonna say no. One of the
not
major
even in
reasons,
10 or 15.
One of the major reasons is, it is. For one, they're in an amazing recruiting area, amazing campus, just like UC Davis. But the requirements to get into those 2 schools are Ivy League caliber requirements, right? Stanford requirements. So it's one of those things. He can't go after the same players, and I don't want to knock Eastern players. You can't go after the same athletes who were able to get into an Eastern, an Idaho State, a Montana, and Northern Arizona, and try and bring those to UC Davis and Cal Poly. They won't meet some of the academic requirements. So it's a whole new game plan. I don't see them winning a national title anytime soon, but he can bring them to being a top-tier Big Sky team, right? Yeah. Cal Poly made the playoffs a few times. They were beating North Dakota State in the Great West. So, I mean, they have a chance if he can figure out how to get some of those athletes that meet all the academic requirements and that are in the system.
Yeah, according to the U.S. News and World Report, like if you're looking at Idaho and Montana are your 2 academic, powerhouse institutions. If you exclude those 2 schools, they put in perspective, UC Davis is a top 10 in the country public school. And Cal Poly, I think, is like 63rd. So they're almost, I think Idaho is like 151 and Montana is like 157. So it's like they're almost double the admission requirements to a Montana and an Idaho. And even, and it's to get in the UC Davis, you need a 3.99. Like it, and that's just, you're not going to find a lot of athletes that can do that want to play there. Because if you can get a 3.99, and for those kind of requirements, Stanford is swooping you up, or
Right.
Cal, like that.
Or
It's
Ivy
just
Leagues.
yeah, or the Ivy, or yeah, you get the opportunity to go to UC Davis
UW.
or go to Cambridge and play at Harvard, right?
Yeah.
Like one of these schools that academics are huge. If you meet academic requirements at these academic stringent universities, UC Davis and Cal Poly are probably two of your bottom picks, right? Like there are so many others you could go choose to that are viewed as better schools. I think UC Davis is actually ranked above a couple of the Ivy schools in overall ratings, but like Brown, but it's like they're not going to get that recognition because it's the Ivy League.
Right. All righty. Montana State. What's your guys' thoughts?
Yeah, a lot of people hate me for this one. I think Montana State's going to regress a good amount as of last year. I do not think they're a Frisco team, but they're still going to be really good. They're still among some of the most talented rosters in the Big Sky. It's all going to be dependent on Afonso, who is a month-to-month update on if he's going to be playing or not, right? We don't know. It's not even a day-by-day or a week-by-week or a game-by-game. Right now, they're saying month-by-month. But if you're looking at the defensive side of the ball, they lost their two best players by far, Troy Anderson, Daniel Hardy. They're playing for the Rams right now. Troy Anderson has been a leader of that program for a long time. Then on the offensive side of the ball, if Afonso is not playing, that is a big loss. Then Lance McCutcheon, he is a nightmare wide receiver. We're seeing him, in the preseason of the NFL at the Rams doing huge things. But he caught a lot of 50-50 balls from the quarterbacks last year. And I just don't see it. Their O-line, they lost a lot. They're pretty undersized on the O-line. But again, this is still a talented team. They're going to give everyone fits. But I don't think they're going to be the same team that they were last year. They should be nationally ranked. They should be in the top 4 to start the season. But I would be very surprised if they ended as a seeded team.
Okay.
Yeah, right. I made the mistake of actually early season putting them above Montana in my top 25 poll. A thing I would change the more the season's gone on, the more I've researched, the more that news has come out about Afonso. The more I've come to the realization that Tommy Mellott benefited a lot from not having any game tape on him and getting his first starts in the playoffs. Like, yeah, can he make up some of that ground over Afonso? Yes. But can he make up all of it? Because they need all of it to be able to go back to Frisco. And if Afonso is not healthy, I mean, we assume he would be by the playoffs, but they have literally said indefinitely. So they don't know, essentially, if he'll be healthy by the playoffs. So they're a huge wild card. But, yeah, I would say they'll be top team. 3, top 4 in the Big Sky for sure. But they will be taking a step back. If I'm a Bobcat fan, I'm probably not buying repeat tickets to Frisco. Wish they would, because Kyler and I go to Frisco every year. They were super fun to hang out with.
So fun.
They actually brought more away fans, and it was terrible weather out for tailgating than I've seen James Madison or Eastern bring.
Absolutely.
They had a huge tent for their alumni association there. It was packed. They were still out tailgating. They weren't as many as North Dakota State fans, but Montana State traveled to that game well. They were fun at Topgolf. They're fun at Scruffy McDuffie's. Yeah, they were so much fun to be around, and it felt more like a 50-50 game than it's felt the other 4 seasons I've gone.
All right. Last but not least, Montana.
Yep.
They were phenomenal last year. They were really good. They keep getting better. Personally, they're my pick to win, if not the full Big Sky, at least a share of the Big Sky. I 8 wins, most likely, maybe 7 wins.
Just in conference play?
Probably, yeah. I mean, I don't know. Let's see. They don't have an FBS team,
and they have a very easy, in my opinion. I mean, they play
South
Dakota.
They play
a solid
team. State, South Dakota, at Indiana State, Portland State, at Idaho State, bye week before Idaho, which they're hosting, at Sac State, at Weber, home against Cal Poly, home against Eastern, and then they end the year at Montana State.
Yeah, I think they're going 10-1.
Yeah,
potentially even 11-0.
I'm doing 10-1. I'm doing 10-1. They'll probably get at least one loss, which it won't be expected.
They might go undefeated.
They might go 11-0. And I don't like giving them props, but I'm a very honest person. When I look at their roster, what they're bringing in, it keeps getting better under Houck. They were pretty injured for the first half of the year. I think a healthy Montana beats Sac State, and then you're just not beating Montana at Montana unless you're a North Dakota State, right? It's going to be very hard to beat this team. But they returned Knight, who he was all injured last year because he tore his ACL. In 2019, as a running back, he had like 23 touchdowns. So they return Knight. They do lose their wide receiver production, but it seems like they have a better quarterback who transferred from San Diego State, who was the best team in the Mountain West last year, and he actually had 8 or 9 starts, and he went 8-1 or 7-1 in that series. So it looks like they finally have a quarterback who could potentially get the ball out to some of these wide receivers, and then their defense is going to be lights out. I mean, they're stacked linebacker, they're stacked D-line, they're stacked corners. They're going to be a very, very good team, and they should be everyone's favorite to win the Big Sky when you actually do a deep dive into their roster.
And their schedule.
Yeah.
The schedule is not the most difficult.
They got a huge break here this year. I mean, they do kind of stack there at the end. Like when I was reading it, they sort of close the year basically after their bye week. They play a rival in Idaho who's not ready to compete with them, but at home. At Sac State, which I think is going to be down this year. At Weber, who Kyler thinks is going to be good this year. But I think we all agreed that they will probably beat those two schools. Cal Poly is a cakewalk right before they host Eastern, who they beat in Montana literally months ago. And then they host Montana State, at Montana State. If they lose, it's probably that game in Bozeman. And you know what? Early season, I don't have too many qualms picking Montana State in that game. And then you could just have a flop of last year where like Montana State lost to Montana, but then went to Frisco. That could be what happens this year is Montana loses to Montana State last week of the season, and it's the kick in the butt they need to run through the playoffs and get to Frisco. And honestly, that's probably what's going to happen. They're literally going to take their rival's blueprint from a season ago and use it to their own accord and probably make Frisco this year. I mean, they are a Frisco. It's going to be probably them or South Dakota State playing NDSU. We'll see how the bracket pencils out. But if they get the 2 seed, they're probably going to Frisco. It would be shocking if they didn't, pending, obviously major injuries and unforeseen things. But I would bet a 45% chance that Montana makes Frisco this year.
Okay, so real quick, if Montana makes Frisco, who's the other team?
North Dakota State.
North Dakota State.
North Dakota State's not losing this year. They're going to beat Arizona.
Flip up one game, but that's about it.
Yeah, maybe SDSU.
They'll still get a top 2 seed.
This, scarily, they might not have the quarterbacks, but as like an overall roster, this is one of the best North Dakota State teams they've ever had. And I know people don't want to hear that, but they're loaded again, and they've lost a lot of pieces. And Cam Miller, I don't think Montana's going to be able to beat them. I mean, sorry, Big Sky. We're going to go 12 years since our last title. Because
I don't think anyone's beaten North Dakota State.
No, I think North Dakota State might rip off a perfect, 15, 16-0 at this point?
Yeah, I don't think they're going to do that. They're not as good as 2013, 2018, but they're still better than everyone else in the FCS by a good margin.
Next, with James Madison gone and Sam Houston. I actually don't think Sam Houston could be super great this year. So, yeah, I mean, JMU is maybe the team that could have fought him this year, and they're gone. So it's Montana now, South Dakota State, and I don't think either of those schools have the horses in a playoff neutral site game to beat them.
Okay. All right. So real quick, FCS versus FBS. Kyler, Eastern Washington has the privilege of playing 2 FBS schools, Oregon and Florida. Now, according to a lot of people, there's a lot of people that think that Florida is going to be not that great this year. I don't know. Do you see any potential upset with either of those two?
Nope. If we played them last year with our team and their roster, absolutely. They gave up like 50 points to Sanford. Eastern's going to be down compared to last year offensively, and Florida is going to be much better. Nope. Yeah, Eastern's going 0-2 And, we have 11 FBS upsets or 12. So we've been one of the consistent teams to beat FBS teams. We're not doing it this year.
So part of the reason people think Florida's going to be bad is because their head coach, Billy Napier, has been downplaying what the expectation should be. And I want people to understand that that's because Billy Napier is one of the smartest coaches. He will probably be, when Nick Saban retires, you can mark this down, he'll probably be the Alabama Crimson Tide's head coach. He comes off the Saban tree, and he understands it. He turned down multiple G5 and lower tier P5 offers while he was at Louisiana because he wanted to go to a good situation. He's not that coach that just makes jumps, just does this. He's not an Ed Ogeron who's just going to pump his chest and say, we're going to go around here and beat everybody. He understands the business part of this and the entertainment part of this, that if you can downplay expectations and they win 8 games, that fan base is going to be excited. But if he comes in year one and says, we're turning this puppy around year one, and they win 8 games, that fan base is going to be disappointed.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, this is still a really good SEC East team in the Florida Gators. They still have more roster than the entire Big Sky put together on one team. Billy Napier and this team are going to win no matter how much he wants to tell people they're going to be down. Eastern can give them a run, maybe keep it tight for a quarter or two. But, end of the game, the spread will be in the 20s to 30s.
Okay. Does Idaho have an FBS team?
Yeah, we play 2 as well. Indiana and Washington State.
They got no
Indiana?
chance.
No. I don't know. Indiana just lost to Northwestern, right?
No, that was Nebraska.
No, that was Nebraska.
That was Nebraska?
Let's put it this way. We lost to Indiana last year in one of their worst years, which is saying something for Indiana football. I was there.
And it was 70-6.
Yeah, it wasn't that bad. It was like 53-6. But I like our shots against Washington State a lot better just because it's also a new coaching staff. Quasi new. They were all interims last year. And it is a quasi rivalry game. But that said, that's still we're talking 1% to 2%.
Yeah,
it's possible. I'm saying there's a chance, but
right.
we're not going to Aspen, Colorado for anyone.
0% chance Idaho wins any of those games, just like Eastern Washington. 0% chance we win ours.
Right. Idaho State just lost to UNLV, so they lost their FBS game. Northern Colorado.
Who do they play?
Wyoming.
I don't know. Wyoming. Yeah.
Well, Wyoming looks bad.
Do they?
Yeah.
Do they just kind of hang? Who they play? Utah State?
No.
Who was their week 1? They just played this weekend.
Yeah. Wasn't it Illinois and they lost by 50? They got just hammered by Illinois, I'm pretty sure.
Illinois is not bad.
They're not good though.
38-6. With second year Brett Bielema, who literally turned the program from a 1-win program to a 5-win program in his first year with basically the same roster. He has a full year under his belt. I believe Illinois also just invested in a new football. Illinois is a program that sneakily, if you follow Big Ten football, they're not going to – they're trying to be a power in the West.
Went 5 for 20 for 30 yards. And you're telling me Wyoming looked good?
No, I'm not saying – I just don't think they look trash.
They looked absolute trash.
Do you think – all right, are they so trash that Northern Colorado's going to beat them?
No, because everyone looks good against Northern Colorado.
But then you brought up a good point when we were previewing Northern Colorado. They have not looked good against their last 2 Big Sky teams. One was Montana State, who ended up going to the Frisco, but then 2 years previously, they lost to an Idaho team. They only won – or didn't lose, but they were in danger of losing. They only won 20-13, I believe, against an Idaho team that won 4 games. So they do struggle against the Big Sky. But I agree. Northern Colorado's not beating Wyoming.
Yeah.
The spread will be interesting, though.
Let's just put it as a potential. Maybe.
Nope.
I'll say out of all the schools we've listed so far, yes, they probably have the highest percent chance
out of the teams we've mentioned. Yeah.
Okay. Northern Arizona goes to Arizona State. Arizona State is a complete and absolute dumpster fire this year. They have lost half of the team. Ed McCaffrey, or no, not
Herm Edwards.
Thank you. Herm Edwards is on the hot seat this year on being let go. I think they're going to be the Arizona that was Arizona last year. They're still not as bad as Arizona,
Not even close.
but it definitely won't be a blowout like the last few times NAU has played ASU. I think it's going to be a closer game, and I think it's going to be a potential.
I think NAU will lose by 30 plus.
You think so?
I do.
Okay.
They were solid last year. ASU wasn't that bad. Yes, they've had some offseason debacle, but they were 6-3 and they were a bowl team. They're just so much better than Arizona was last year. And I think they could lose 40 players and still have a roster to beat a majority of the FCS.
Okay.
Yeah, the Sun Devils are significantly better than Arizona, who's going to get curb stomped by North Dakota State. You know what? I will give you guys the lead in the clubhouse at the moment. I like your odds against ASU better than Northern Colorado's against Wyoming. How about that?
There you go. I'll take it.
We're up to a whopping 4% win percentage.
Yeah. Well,
Chance win percentage.
ESPN has them as a 2.9%.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, it's too low. Weber State.
Utah State.
Utah State. Yeah.
Oh. After looking at the game last night, I think Weber State is a little happy because Utah State played UConn, who lost to 2 FCS teams last year, not good FCS teams. UConn has been horrible, arguably the worst FBS team of all time. And for a while, they were giving Utah State a run for their money. Now, maybe it's just first game hiccups, right? I would still anticipate Utah State winning. They were one of the best teams in the Mountain West last year. Extremely good. But, man, if we're just basing off of last night's game, Weber's probably a little happier than they were on Friday.
Right.
To keep that in perspective, Jim Mora Jr. is officially the head coach of the UConn Huskies. He's a lot, if you think about the Scott Frost situation now at Nebraska. It's a lot like that. UCLA thought that he wasn't good enough, which, to be fair, he did trickle off there at the end. But Jim Mora Jr., 2-time NFL, 3-time college in just recent years. I'm not looking at his wiki or anything. So it's I'm sure he started up at an Akron or something. But it's he's a guy that can coach. You don't have game film on it because he hasn't been a head coach in 4 or 5 seasons. I think Utah State just got stuck with that late night kind of jitterbug. I think that was more indicative of UConn maybe making a step forward and Utah State taking a step back. That said, new leader in the clubhouse, Weber State has the best chance to beat an FCS school or FBS school out of anyone we've listed. And in my opinion, it's a significantly larger. I'm giving them they play 6 times. I think Weber State wins once.
Got it.
Yeah, fair.
Portland State. Do they play FBS?
San Jose State.
I guess I picked them to win. So.
And
yeah.
I actually think as of all the teams right now that we've chatted about, and it's not because I have faith in Portland State. It's because I have no faith in San Jose State. And Portland State surprised teams in the past, right? I don't know what it is.
So it is faith in Portland State.
No, not really. If they played any other, outside of maybe UNLV, I probably would pick the Mountain West team. They're probably not going to beat San Jose State, but out of all the games we mentioned so far, I think they have the best chance because of how bad San Jose State really is. Where a lot of the other games we're mentioning, they're solid teams.
Chris, hurry and put on Twitter that Kyler is a fan of Portland State.
Fact. Already did. Yeah, voice text.
That bum program should just stop.
I disagree with my prediction, but I'll stick with it. If there's going to be somebody's going to surprise somebody, right? It was NAU. We were saying the same thing last year. We're look, NAU probably doesn't have too much of a shot against Arizona, and they did. They win it, right? I think most people did pick probably UC Davis had a good shot against Tulsa, and that was one of the other ones that happened. This is one of those ones where I think I don't think this is that hard to imagine that Portland State beats San Jose State.
Got it. All right. Sac State.
They're playing what? Cal?
Hold on, let me get all. I got all the
think
schedules.
it's
here.
one of those. It's either UC Davis or Sac playing.
UC
Cal.
Davis is playing Cal.
Okay.
Sac State is playing Colorado State.
Oh, well, they actually have the best chance to win. Colorado State is awful. And when they played South Dakota State last year, you saw a difference in the size, talent, speed. Now, we also saw that when South Dakota State played Sac State, but at least Sac State made second half adjustments and made the game a little closer at the end, where Colorado State just really bad.
So
I disagree.
I think Colorado State still wins, but I think it's going to be a decent game.
So Jay Norvell is the new coach of the Colorado State Rams. This is something you don't see often. He left Nevada, who was winning under him, because Nevada doesn't commit to football, and Colorado State is making investments in football. With that, they had something like 17 kids transfer along with them. So you were looking at basically Nevada's roster probably starting for Colorado State this year. That said, Norvell did lose to Idaho State 1 year while he was at, his first couple seasons at Nevada. But no, I like this one less than I like Weber State over Utah State. This is not one I'm very high on. But, I guess they did hang against Cal last year. So this might just be my Sac State bias coming out. But no, this is not one I would be picking if we were drafting.
Well, so far I've picked 0.
True.
So it doesn't matter.
UC Davis playing Cal. That's not a win. Well,
they could be very dangerous in that game.
Arizona beat Cal last year.
And Sacramento State went toe-to-toe with Cal for most of the game.
And UC Davis brought in their 5-game starting Mike linebacker who will know the defense.
Yeah. But that being said, no, Cal still beats UC Davis because I don't think UC Davis has the talent to go toe-to-toe.
But this is overall, I know we haven't picked all of them. This is like on my top 3 watch list of possibles. I think if one is going to happen, like an NAU last year, UC Davis Cal is like my sneaky pick that like UC Davis could maybe get Cal if Cal just really is not ready, which would be very Cal also. Like them beating Cal would not shock me, I guess is what it is. Like there is a part of me that thinks they could win this game, but my brain is telling me like, no, Cal still like, yeah, they got a linebacker from Cal, but he also wasn't their full season starter. So like this guy also wasn't good enough to be a consistent starter at Cal. So if that's who you're going to be starting at UC Davis, then there goes and shows the talent gap, right? Like,
right.
So no, I don't think they'll win, but like anyone that thinks that Cal for sure is going to beat UC Davis, this one's closer in my opinion, maybe the closest to a coin flip, but yeah, I'm still when I do bet on this game, I will be taking Cal.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Montana State.
Montana State has Oregon State.
The Beavers. Oregon State really hasn't been the best.
Oregon State's on the incline though. They've hired Jonathan Smith as their head coach. He's an alumni. He spent some time at Idaho. He's actually our quarterback coach during the 2009 run. And a lot of people wanted him to get the head coaching job when Akey left. We didn't hire him. Goes to show the mistake we made. Like they put 2 guys in the NFL, yes, as backups while he's been there at quarterback. They had the best running back in the Pac-12 last season. Like they're a program that is making significant strides. They completely are redoing their stadium. So this might actually be the opening game for them at home. I didn't check, but Montana State might be opening the brand new addition to Reser Stadium. Too much energy. The Beavers, and I got a bunch of friends that are Beavers. They are very high on this program. Expect them to be the new Washington State when Mike Leach was there. That team that finishes like 2nd to 3rd in the North every year. And it's just kind of oddly frisky.
They're playing Montana State at Providence Park.
So their stadium must not be done.
No, they're playing Boise week 1 in their stadium.
Oh, so they're just doing a Portland game.
They're trying to just recruit out of Portland a little more, which is Montana State's probably played in Providence Park more than Oregon State has.
But not the new one.
No, but still, that's interesting game.
It's been freaking.
Oregon State wins though.
I was talking to a guy from Idaho about this. He's like, they need to go play there. I'm like, they won't let them play there. The soccer team bought it out and turned that thing into. It would be the nicest. It would be the nicest stadium in the FCS. It would beat Alabama State. Like, that is a freaking turnkey, beautiful stadium they built there, and it kills me as a soccer fan who roots against that team to say that. It's a beautiful stadium. But like, I agree with Kyler. Like, for Oregon State, that's going to be weird. You're going to be in soccer locker rooms. It'll be a little weird. So maybe some freakiness happens. Oregon Pac-12 after dark. Do we have a kickoff time?
Yeah, right. I don't know.
Yeah, but
I will say one of the newest and nicest stadiums in the Big Sky is Birmingham.
Birmingham?
Yes.
No, I'm sorry, not the Big Sky. In all of college football.
Oh yeah,
is
that
Birmingham.
That thing is beautiful.
It's a 5 p.m. kickoff. My Cooper Cup just fell down when you're talking about beautiful stadiums.
Got it.
That's because he's trying to name yours.
No. There's no room for high school stadiums here. So.
Well, then why is Portland State in the conference?
Yeah, you're right. Well, guys, if you had to name the one surprise team in the Big Sky, who is it going to be?
You're talking like most likely to be a surprise team? Because I think the rankings are pretty well set. Like I do think those are the best 6 teams. So
right, but just the no one really saw coming surprise team won't really win the Big Sky, but will be better than predicted.
Well, then for me, I would say UC Davis is my team that I think they're getting picked 5th now. I think they have a chance to finish in the top 2 to 3. So that's kind of my team that I would say I have a hankering will surprise and maybe exceed preseason expectations. If you want your Sac State 2019 team, I'm not trying to be trying to take the homer hat off here. I think of the bottom 8, Idaho is probably the team because of the new coach best set to maybe make a leap to the 5 spot. I don't see them getting any higher than 5th, but if you're looking at the outside the top 6 teams, and then NAU is kind of that bar, the team that could maybe move ahead of NAU to be either the new bar or whatever, I do think is probably Idaho. And I'm trying to say that as neutral as possible. People won't believe me, but that is trying to homer hat off, Big Sky hat on, new coach, decent roster talent. I think they have the most upside of the bad teams.
I think this is going to be a year where we don't have really any surprises.
Yeah, it's going to be mostly chalk, except UC Davis.
I think UC Davis pick is a extremely bad pick by Chris. I don't see it. I don't think they have the talent. I think they are going to be about right where they fall, maybe even a few slots behind. So my surprise team would just be Weber. I've been pretty vocal about it, but I don't really consider them a surprise team, right? They're top 4.
Won the title 4 times in 5 years.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a cop-out answer.
We're back.
But maybe a team who's better than what their record shows. Probably Northern Colorado will be better than what their record shows. But they're still going to be really bad, and they're going to lose a lot of games.
Okay.
What do you think? Kyler and I talk too much. I already knew what Kyler was going to say. I want to hear somebody else's opinion.
It's all right. Not trying to be a homer, but I think NAU is going to win more than 5 games this year.
So what's your ceiling? I'm curious, as NAU is a team I'm having a hard time kind of pinpoint. What do you think the ceiling is?
7 games.
So would that get up to about 4th or 5th in the conference?
Probably.
Playoff fringe team, either last 4 in, first 4 out?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I wouldn't argue that point. I think that's fair. I just need to see under Ball, they have become the bar ball,
right,
or the ball bar. Chris Ball has become the bar. I think you guys have been the first team out of the playoffs, and not excluding 2020, the first team out of the playoffs in the Big Sky each season. Everybody ahead of you has gone in. Everybody behind you has been left out. So
in the spring season,
which I'm throwing out because that was weird, and UC Davis claims they got invited but turned it down.
But no.
Yeah.
no. If Weber State in the spring season didn't catch that Hail Mary, NAU would have gone to the playoffs.
Yeah.
Because, and then Cal Poly decided to quit in the middle of the season.
That's because of us. We beat them 70-6.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but
So-
So Davis, NAU, and Weber. I'd say those are. I mean, once again, how surprised can you be by the teams that are picked 4th, 5th, and 7th in the conference to be surprise teams? But yeah, I think there's not. I guess there is a little bit of uncertainty in the Big Sky, and the fact that about half the teams are going to have new quarterbacks, and the other half, there's not really a significant returning starter in the Big Sky. Like, you have some guys that did a little bit of quarterback battling and won their positions.
Martinez and Dunaway are the two dudes, and then Tommy
But even
Malott.
Dunaway, he was a part of a 2-quarterback system last year.
Right.
Yeah, but he was the main guy.
That's what I'm saying. Like, and then Tommy Malott comes in the playoffs, so it's like, I guess him, but it's like there's a lot of Bronson Barron, but even like Weber people are unsure about it. I think there's a lot of uncertainty at quarterback, but there's also some certainty at quarterback. This could be a year where we go very chalk. That said, famous last words, right? Like, it is the Big Sky Conference we're talking about.
Right. But I will say NAU has 3 quarterbacks, two are returning. RJ Martinez and Widener. And then Angel Flores is the freshman coming in. So we're pretty
Portland
stacked.
State has 9.5.
There you go. There you go. All righty, guys. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Is there anything you want to say?
No, if you just want to follow us, at Up North, FCS Fans Nation, Eagles Power Hour. I mean, the FCS Chris Show. We're everywhere. If you don't know if you don't know who we are, well, you do now. But we're kind of everywhere.
Yeah, we're about an hour and a half into an episode. If you want us to talk more about your team, every team we've covered so far is at least 43 minutes is our
to an hour and
quickest
15.
episode to an hour 15 at the moment. So, like, if you want to hear more about your team, you can find Up North on everything but Apple Podcasts, because they're giving us one hell of a time getting our podcast live. But then you can also find it on the FCS Fans Nation Network. Just there's a playlist called Up North, or just literally Google your team or Cal Poly Up North, and it will show up because we're good at SEO.
Sounds good to me. Tomorrow, I will be back as we are doing a preview of NAU and Arizona State University.
Good luck, buddy.
I am just happy that we can say football season is here. Until tomorrow, always root NAU and the Big Sky Conference, just as a whole.
At least until conference play, right?
At least until conference play, and then after that, it's who cares? It's just only about your one team. Alrighty, guys, have a great one.
Take care.
Deuces.